Hello, everyone. Welcome to Crypto with English. I'd like to introduce to you a very unique and special guest, Yuliia Shyn. She's a Dubai-based tech advisor and consultant, as well as a web and mobile app developer. She's been working on numerous projects, and in many ways is kind of at the center of the world, being based in Dubai. So for anybody who loves tech and loves about what goes on outside of the US. You will constantly see the US. You will constantly see Dubai and Abu Dhabi taking essentially visibility in many of the headlines. And it's really proven itself as a very ideal incubator overseas for tech startups, especially as to blockchain and AI. So today, we're going to get into the weeds about some of Yuliia's projects in AI and related areas, and find out a little bit more as far as what makes the UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, that region, very unique and very special for the future of tech. So, Yuliia, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you very much, Adam, for inviting. I'm very excited to have this conversation today.
Awesome. And for the audience, could you tell everybody a little bit about your background and some of the things you have worked on?
Right. So I have a total experience in business development of 13 years. And for the past more than 5 years, I've been working in tech. For the past 5 years, almost, I've been working for a tech consultancy company and a web development company in Dubai, and recently joined a computer vision startup, a US-based one, called Clade AI. So right now I'm helping to expand their B2B portfolio for AI, for image enhancements, optimization, and restoration.
That's awesome. And as far as apps and dApps and projects, what kind of things have you worked on?
My job at IT consultancy company consisted of, first of all, to speak about the business goals of different clients and companies, SMBs, entrepreneurs, startups, and the government as well here in Dubai. And then based on the goals, what they want to achieve, we were building the concept and the project based on that. So I was involved in different, it could be anything starting from the marketplace, something unique marketplace, or it could be a management platform, and or we were building also the investigation tool for Dubai Civil Aviation Authority. I built one use case for Smart Dubai, but it didn't work based on the blockchain as well. So for different kind of purposes. So most of all, they were focused on the paperless strategy to digitalize and automate all their paperwork and KYC processes and so on.
That's awesome. And just to give a little bit more context, so how long have you been based out of Dubai, and how long have you been working there and living there?
This is so interesting. So I live here for 7 years already, but I can't believe it. So just the time flies so fast in Dubai because it's so comfortable. It's so it's interesting, warm, and yeah, dynamic life. And you can't notice how the time flies.
Right, right. I can imagine. And there's certainly a lot going on there. So,
Mm-hmm.
speaking of which, so Dubai in the UAE. So, if, dovetailing off what I just provided in the introduction, so that region is really positioning itself to be really leading this tech revolution or this tech renaissance
Mm-hmm.
that we are going into. And in fact, many of the leaders over there are really behind in engineering a lot of these very ambitious projects over there.
Mm-hmm.
And over the past 10 years, it has really proven itself to be an ideal location for tech startups and businesses to really launch and experiment their projects over there. Having a very business and tax friendly environment, especially if you're like an entrepreneur doing those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, what is it about Dubai that makes it special as far as maybe the people or the leadership over there?
Mm-hmm.
What ingredients are they cooking with that make it so attractive from everybody from everywhere else to want to go there?
Well, I think first of all, Dubai feels like everything is possible in Dubai. To be honest, like. But funny and at the same time, it's of course as difficult as in any part of the world. Of course, you need to still to work hard. So because many people come here to set up a startup and they believe that any kind of idea will find a place, but it's
Right,
not not the case here. So what is attractive in Dubai, first of all, is the government here, and they build the infrastructure around that to be business oriented. So
right,
they are quite techy. People here adopt the technology quite fast. For example, like how many food delivery platforms we have here, and it's even not enough. And we get more and more new companies popping up, as an
right,
example. The ambitions of Dubai and the support of the tech entrepreneurs, this is true. And after 2020, they released a new governmental strategy for a couple of years to grow the ecosystem and to become a second Silicon Valley. And so
right.
there are so
Heard
many
about that.
accelerators. There are a lot of laws and regulations that were creating so fast. And yeah, in general, the vision of Dubai government and UAE government overall is very innovative. They think about the very far future ahead, so many years ahead.
Right. So it would be fair to say the leadership is thinking like 10, 15, 20 years ahead when they,
Yes.
I think, adopt these projects or
Mm-hmm.
as far as, choose the projects and the direction,
Mm-hmm.
in I guess whichever way to go in. And it seems like a very cosmopolitan type of place. Every time I read about Dubai, it seems like it's really a city and a region made up of people from everywhere. So in many ways, it
Mm-hmm.
kind of reminds me of New York City. So when I read about Dubai, it's people from other parts of the Middle East, people from Asia, people from Europe and
Mm-hmm.
North America, and whatnot. So kind of dovetailing off that, the future of the workforce. That's
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that's very concerning everywhere else. Skills, um, you know, and I guess you could say certifications and degrees
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. It would be fair to say, I think the traditional education, or at least that
Mm-hmm.
formula, is kind of out the window right now.
Mm-hmm.
Having a college degree or even having an advanced or a doctoral degree
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really guarantee you a job anymore. So, in your opinion, especially with all the AI and automation, what skills do you think are going to be necessary in the next few years so somebody can remain competitive whenever they're
Mm-hmm.
looking for new jobs or just looking to get hired?
Mm-hmm. So first of all, we need to understand the person background, right? So that's true that today's certification and degree probably will not play such a high reason when it comes to the hiring decision.
Right.
More, it is related to the experience. So we need to look in the market or where the market is. So, for example, if a person wants to or has the background working in retail, of course, the necessary skills would be managing the e-commerce or building these platforms. When it
Sure.
comes to the marketing, you need to be aware of the data science, data analytics, because everyone is talking about data. But today in Dubai, if before they were talking and educating themselves about the data, today, this year, they started to take actions based on the data, which is a very good news. So, and the third thing is about when we are talking about the processes. So, if you are the person who is working in operations, you need to think about how you can run the business with less staff, and that is where you need to learn about the
Right.
automations. So, automating the processes, including when you are a salesperson or business development manager, think about the building sales ops, for example, rev ops, everything to be automated.
Right. Yeah, and it certainly looks like things will be moving in that direction. In fact, I think with AI and automation, it's probably going to make a lot of jobs obsolete. I would imagine many will be losing traditional jobs in certain sectors as time goes on. So, in terms of learning AI, learning automation, and I guess you could say starting your education there, where would be a good place to start? Or in fact, how did you, learn about this subject matter, and how did you gain your skills?
I put a lot of efforts in my self-education. I dedicate a lot of my free time into self-education and go to online courses, including Coursera. Not much of LinkedIn learning, but Udemy as well. And I was blessed to meet some other people and to attend the conferences and seminars. And not much books because they become outdated by the time they get published. Yeah, and along the network as well, I have a network of programmers, and then I also learned something from programmers as well. And yeah, various sources. I can't say that only one particular source would be good for you. However, I also, my friends, they go to the university to get a second education or masters in, for example, I have a friend who is now obtaining an education in cybersecurity, in Harvard University. So this is another,
Nice.
yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. So it would be fair to say, in this day and age, if anybody wants to get their start, try using and acquiring certifications, whether it's Coursera, whether it's Udemy, whether it's I guess a lot of these, remote and virtual platforms to start, learning stuff. And I think you mentioned a good point here. Books, as great as they are, the way information is going nowadays, a lot of that format can be outdated very, very
Right.
fast. And there's not time if you're a publisher to print out something that could probably keep up, with the speed of information. So I think that's an excellent point you raised. So going forward, what are your opinions on the metaverse, NFTs, and where do you think Dubai is gonna, and how do you think Dubai will be playing a role in that? Because it seems like no matter what, society will be moving in that direction, where in the future most people are going to be doing parts of their everyday life on the metaverse. This is going to be business. This could be education. This is going to be entertainment like gaming and whatnot. So, being where you are, where do you think the UAE will have? How do you think the UAE will have a role, and how much of a role do you think they will have in that?
What I can be sure about is definitely I believe that UAE will take place in metaverse. However, when it will happen, that's the good question. However, UAE has a lot of ambitions and they adopt the technology and innovation. However, they adopt the technology that works somewhere else. So this is one fact you need to know about UAE. So perhaps in a couple of years, we can see UAE to be part of Metaverse. But I would be pleasantly surprised if it become a part of Metaverse in the next year, let's say.
Right.
But from my experience working in Dubai and with Dubai authorities and with Dubai companies and UAE companies, not only in Dubai, they want to see what works, what are the values, and how it will support their governmental goals, and then they will take a decision based on that.
Got it. So I guess making a distinction there. So let's say here in the US, maybe companies or culture might be more open to trying something completely new that hasn't worked anywhere else, or at least hasn't been tested. The UAE and Dubai, on the other hand, will see what has already worked elsewhere, and then they'll start taking next steps towards adoption or something like that, right?
Right. Yes, exactly.
So would it be?
However,
Yes.
yeah, just I would like to add one point, because you touched the points about the hiring and professionals, because right now what is interesting going on in Dubai, they are trying to attract more people, highly qualified tech specialists in Dubai, because
Right.
of course here the UAE nationals are not enough in order to support this innovation and experience, because it's a young country. We recently
Right.
yesterday celebrated like 50 years only, and anniversary for UAE. So they are now giving special residency visas, long-term visas, 5-10 years, to highly qualified specialists. So they're attracting, and that could be a turning point where UAE could start being faster adopting something and experimenting with technology.
Wow. 5 and 10 year visas to get, I guess you could say, outside talent to go into the
Mm-hmm.
country to kind of, I guess, move this innovation further
Mm-hmm.
along. So that's very, very interesting to say the very least. And I will definitely say, doing something like that, 5-10 year work visas, especially for tech companies and tech specialists,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that will inevitably attract a tremendous amount of talent. And from what you see out there, I would imagine programming languages are
Mm-hmm.
very important to learn right now. And there are
Mm-hmm.
so many, and there are so many out there. Now, I personally have some experience with Python and
Mm-hmm.
Solidity. Now, a lot of that is blockchain related, and maybe only certain blockchains, for instance. However, in your experience, what programming languages do you think make candidates marketable?
Again, everything depends on the what we are talking about which solution, because each
Sure.
programming language serves its best for the right task. What are we going to solve here? And whether we are talking about AI, yeah, Python is the most common, but we also have Java. For example, Java is very good used for data science as well.
Right.
And Java is widely used for in some governmental authorities. I can't disclose which one, but some governmental authorities, for example, they prefer to program in .NET. Um, .NET shows it's a very good language in terms of the
Right.
enterprise. When we are talking about some more e-commerce or marketplace platforms, I would say that JavaScript is the one of the top. When we are talking about mobile app development, React Native and Flutter, they are flowing. React Native because it's pushed by Facebook, of course.
Right.
Flutter because it's pushed by Google. However, still iOS native languages like Swift and Java for Android are the top still.
Got it. And as far as apps, what do you think the future trend will be as far as apps? Now, I know you've worked on many, many projects, and I think
Mm-hmm.
nowadays we're certainly living in a huge abundance of
Uh-huh.
apps. But what do you think the main trends will be going forward? Is it mostly going to be hospitality and food? Is it mostly going to be like maybe news apps or I guess social media apps, or do you think it's going to be something else?
This is very interesting. First of all, will we have mobile apps? That's a very good question, because there was yeah, if you see the trend, there was a rise of trend to having a mobile app.
Right.
Everyone wanted app. So I have an app for everything,
Right.
and then it goes everyone got overwhelmed, and everyone said, no, I want to get rid of mobile apps, and then
Right.
the trend went down. But now we are again back on the high rise. So I would expect that they will drop down again, because people now more in the tendency of the mindfulness, mental health. This is a very
Right.
high people rising trend in mobile apps.
Right.
I would say yeah, about market is growing every year by 21-23% overall. So mental health apps will grow. I think I also see that, of course, the food delivery marketplaces are growing. Fitness apps market
Oh
is
yeah.
growing dramatically, and education apps also grow dramatically.
Very, very interesting. And, one of the newest trends, and I think it's going to last a while, is gamification. And you see
Mm-hmm.
gamification very often, especially these days in apps. So, what do you think about that? Do you think gamification will end up being the standard in, I guess you could say, app development or the app industry, going forward? So, like, for example, I had recently downloaded an app called Habitica. So,
Mm-hmm.
I like to keep
Mm-hmm.
very organized and I like to write lists. The thing is,
Mm-hmm.
though, I was using the traditional Apple, I think, notepad or notebook app, and after a while, these lists just look almost like a book. It looks like a paragraph. So I wanted to get something that was a little bit more colorful and a little bit more kind of engaging. So I used
Mm-hmm.
Habitica, and what they did is they included all these different animations into the app, almost like a video game. So it's essentially each task you do, you're kind of
Mm-hmm.
unlocking a different animation, or you're unlocking a different tool or some sort of feature of it. What do you think about these? I guess gamified, apps. Whether it's, I guess, regarding health or whether it's, day
Mm-hmm.
planning or anything along those lines. What do you think about that?
That's a very deep question. We may answer in a very deep conversation about user experience. I always like to focus on a user. Who is our end user? We need to
Right.
understand the profile, so we create several user personas, and we need to understand their behavior and what are their character. Because if it is their personal finance for a businessman, he doesn't want to play games. He wants to
Right.
be very straight to the point, quickly to access the information he needs and do the transactions. For example, for investment companies, getting trendy to build their own apps. So to stimulate the investors, quickly do the transaction, quickly invest into the startup, for example. When we are talking about banks, so when we are talking about the end users, like consumers, I see that lots of people, they like the engagement,
Right.
for example, to collect cats and animation and the gamifying, right? Of
Right.
course, when we are talking about the end users, if it is just for daily use, probably yes, it's a good idea. When we are talking business wise, we need to understand whether it makes sense.
I think this is a very important point you brought up, and I don't hear it
Mm.
thrown around. The user profile. So this is
Mm-hmm.
very important when creating any type of app-related project. So, in your experience, what are the typical user profiles that you've encountered? So you've mentioned the banker. So let's say the
Mm-hmm.
individual that works in finance or investment banking and stuff like that. What are the other common user profiles that you've encountered?
If you can give me a little bit more context about what kind of user profile, like what is their user behavior,
Yeah,
you mean,
I
or
guess
in
I
which
guess what I
sense?
mean is categories or types. So you mentioned the banker. So I'd imagine
Uh-huh.
that's almost like a broad category of user profile. Or
Uh-huh.
or maybe, dovetailing off of that, I guess you could say college students might be another user
Uh-huh.
profile, especially for these hospitality based apps like, like a Uber Eats, for instance, where
Mm-hmm.
you're, ordering like some sort of late night meal. What other
Uh-huh.
common user types are out there too? Or what other common user types are kind of the focus of a lot of these projects?
Another very good question, a very deep one. So let's pick one mobile app. When we are
Sure.
talking about finance or investment app, we need to understand who is investing how much money. Depends on what's the size of your ticket. If you are raising, like let's say from 100K, 1 million of US dollars, you need to understand who has this kind of money. And
Good
here
point.
we are touching a little bit of psychology. I invite you to look into DISC psychological tool. Where you can categorize the psychological types. It's quite much easier
Sounds pretty cool.
versus MBTI. Yeah,
I'm
I'm a
definitely
big
gonna write
fan
that
of
one down.
psychology.
Yeah.
Right. So there is a cool app, not the app, but it's a web-based platform with a Google Chrome extension called crystalnose.com or .io, I can't remember. And you can analyze the LinkedIn profile and identify the psychological type of the person. And normally
Wow.
when we speak,
That's pretty cool.
right, and it's accurate, like 85% it's accurate. I
Have
tested
you
on
looked at
my
your own profile on
clients.
there?
Right, of course, I did. So I can
Awesome.
run your LinkedIn profile and send you afterwards by email the report.
Is
Yeah.
it a free service? Is this something that anybody could just casually do during the day?
Well, they have a trial version, so you have like 5 or 10 credits free,
Okay.
and then yeah, you need to subscribe. It's not too much expensive, like $29 per month, but it's completely worth it because
Wow.
it will help you to understand how people think and
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's
how they
worth it
behave.
anyway. So
Right, right. So we need to understand that mostly the people, the businessmen with a business mind, they are very dominant. They are, of course, leaders, and they appreciate the efficiency,
right.
and they want to go straight to the point and very quickly. So that gives you the understanding how you can structure your app as well. And
Wow.
of course, on the other side, you need to understand what is your goal. For example, for if you want to raise funds, you want to raise quickly, you set the deadlines, for example,
Right.
and you want just to notify and say yes or no, these are the terms, these are 1 to 3 points. That's
Right.
it, close the deal, close the ticket. So it's both. So based on the type of the person and your goals as well.
Right. And kind of going off that, when creating apps, um, how many psychological types are there? Now, I know there can be many. There could probably be well over 30 or 40. But in your experience,
Mhm.
what are some of the common psychological types that you've encountered when making these apps? Whole 500 people in a room, something like that. I imagine you'll probably find the trend maybe of 5 to 10 types. Now, I'm guessing here, but I would imagine that many people fall into maybe just a handful of categories. Is that your experience?
There is another thing beside that about the user experience, right? So
Right,
how to define what is a good user experience is about providing the flow that users already got used to. For example, if our users, let's say, based on the generations, let's say we have users like students, for
right,
example, 20 years old, they're using Instagram, they could use also TikTok. So we need to look into the workflow and the layout of TikTok and Instagram, which icons and where they are placed, so that we can give an easier and like native feeling of how to use the app.
right.
So that is we are touching more than just psychological behavior. Right.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. So, would it be when joining these projects,
Mhm.
building effectively a psychological profile of who the future users will be is a
Uh-huh.
very important part of putting a
Mhm.
project together. I
Mhm.
guess whether you were to judge things like outgoing people versus maybe more quiet or introverted people, uh,
Mhm.
people with large amounts of concentration, and maybe
Mhm.
people with smaller amounts of focus, like things like that, right? I'd imagine these are like probably the metrics you have to kind
Mhm.
of like mark off on a list when making these things, right?
Correct. As the more personas you create, the better. However, we would recommend to start at between 6 to 8 personas. This will be enough.
Wow.
And you need to really recreate a profile. How old is the person? What kind of education? What kind of job? What kind of problems he wants to solve? Or what kind of problems she has in the life? And how you can solve this problem. When we are talking about the app for the food delivery, let's say, say we need to think about, okay, I am a busy father, top manager, top performing. I have a busy day, busy agenda, and I come home, or I'm on the way. I need to quickly order my lunch, or I need to quickly order my dinner,
Right.
and build the app in thinking about how you are solving the problem for this person.
Wow. And you threw out another term there. So persona. So is persona the same as a user profile?
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
want to make sure I'm following. Okay. All right.
right.
Got it.
Yeah.
And when you said 6 to 8 personas, so I guess you're saying 6 to 8
No, not
effectively.
68.
Oh,
6 or 2 8. I mean,
yeah, that's what I said.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
6 to 8.
Okay.
Yes. So
Yeah.
when you say 6 to 8 personas, would that essentially mean 6 to 8, I guess you could say, user types or customer types,
Right.
correct?
Correct. Mhm.
Okay, wow. That's and as far as AI, um how much of the work does AI do when creating the user type? So I would imagine, let's say on the developer's end, there is going to be a fair amount of, I guess you could say, analysis and computation,
Mhm.
just doing it manually. But how much of the work can AI do now when creating these personas?
To be honest, I'm not sure. However, what can help here is to analytics, data analytics can help to understand the user behavior. But now the question whether you are enhancing your existing application, then you will
Right,
have the data set. If you don't have, if you are just building the product from scratch, because you will need to source some information and the reports, let's say. So not sure how much of AI you will have there, apart
right.
from Google Analytics, for example. Yeah.
Very interesting. And in terms of profitability, what projects tend to be the most profitable? Now, I know there's kind of some nuance and I know there's exceptions here, but let's say if I'm a venture capital firm, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
I have, let's say, a certain amount of seed money I can give to a startup, so to say. If I was to look at just pure profitability, would I want to go with the startup that's making kind of a social media app? Granted, I guess, things like TikTok, maybe
Mm-hmm.
Triller and Twitter and Instagram, their success speaks for themselves. Or
Mm-hmm.
would it be better to, let's say, make something more geared towards the finance industry? So maybe making some of these trading apps and these trading exchange type of
Mm-hmm.
platforms where many bankers use those, and maybe it's not getting the amount of clicks that maybe a social media thing will get, but
Mm-hmm.
it's also attracting, I guess you could say, a high net worth clientele a lot of times too.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, All right. So right now we are more about the profiling of investors kind
Okay,
of
got it.
question, because there are so many. For example, you can open the platform called OpenVC, open.vc. You will
Right,
see plenty of accelerators, VCs, investors who are open to invest in absolutely different kind of fields, absolutely different markets. So there are some VCs, they are specialized or focused on something social impact. There are
right,
VCs that are focused purely on the fintech, something for food tech or agri-tech, and someone for education. So when you are a startup, you can search for any kind of VC, so you can find. When it comes to the investor, there are also different kind of investors based on their background,
right,
and that is how they also decide how to invest, right? There are family offices as well. There
right. That's a good
are
point too.
right. So it also depends on the market and where the market is focused on. For example, in Dubai, when we are talking in Dubai, since I'm here right now, I see that lots of accelerators, they're focused on fintech, mobility, smart cities. These are top three, I think. Agri-tech, yes, as well. Something related is also food tech still. Not much about the social social impact on mental health, not much, as in unlike in the US or the Western
Right.
part of the world. Yeah, but
Wow.
fintech and mobility smart cities are like one of the top.
Wow, that's definitely awesome. And I was going to ask, so let's say on the flip side, if you are, let's say, a startup, hypothetically, are there actual apps out there, using AI, using analytics that can actually find you the investor profile of the people you should pitch to? Because I would imagine something like that would probably be very useful, especially in Dubai with all the startups. Projects where if you're a startup, maybe there is an app that you put in. I guess you could say, I guess you could put in the info or the data regarding your company that could, and then maybe from there probably generate a profile of firms and investors and individuals you should pitch to. Does something like that exist out there?
Yes, it does. In fact, there are platforms you can open a product hunt. Of course, I'm pretty much sure you've heard about this platform. So on
Yes,
product
yes,
hunt,
yes.
you can source. There are pop up more and more like that platforms to help startups to raise funds. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you mentioned smart cities before. So I've seen much more of these projects come up, even in the blockchain space as well. So smart cities, for instance, like on the blockchain, they run off a specific platform, off a specific code, and through the app itself, and I guess using tokens that operate, I guess, similarly to like gas in Ethereum, you can operate, facets of your home, your community, the immediate environment around you. Tell me, do you think that's going to be the future of cities going forward? That essentially we are going to have smart cities done through an app, done through things, whether it's by blockchain and cryptocurrency tokens, or maybe some sort of AI algorithm. What do you think about that?
I think that the question is about if we are going to totally digitalize everything, automate.
Right. Do you think we're going to go in that
Yes.
direction?
Yeah. And here in Dubai, I'm not sure that you have it in the US. I know that in Canada they have it, BCT app, where you can do almost everything around the governmental services and municipality services. And the same we have in Dubai. So from my app, I can we have smart meters. I can even renew my car license. I don't have to attend any governmental authority anymore. So I can do it through the app, everything. Apply for my visa, upload my documents. I have a digital ID. So everything like digitalized, but it's done without blockchain. And this is what I want to also bring up. That we need to understand what are we going to solve here, because whatever is done on the blockchain can be done without the blockchain as well.
Right.
So
and that's a very good point to highlight as well.
Right, just the price varies, right? And everything that AI does, so probably could be also done with just the algorithms, and you don't have to be that far and techy and a lot of investment, because the people, they don't realize I want to implement AI because someone else has, or it sounds very trendy, but you don't realize the investment behind that, because to support the AI you need to invest into the infrastructure behind that, tech infrastructure.
It's a very good point as well. And I would like to highlight this too, and by the way, many developers have told me this, and from my position as a blockchain entrepreneur, I certainly agree with blockchain is not it doesn't always have to be the solution for every project you do. And one of the things that other professionals have highlighted to me, and this is something I also agree with, is that blockchain is extremely energy, I guess you could say, intensive. It does require a lot of output when you're running operations and when you're doing tasks and when you're minting and things like that. So depending on the project, blockchain doesn't have to always be the solution. There are actually many other things you can play with. like you
Correct.
mentioned as well. So I would like to preface this as pro blockchain and as pro cryptocurrency as I am. I would also say this to anybody within the crypto and blockchain community: be realistic and be
Mm-hmm.
self-aware as far as what your project needs, because you don't want to use more money and more resources than you have to. So
Mm-hmm.
if something can be done with less energy, and perhaps less resources and less capital, you may not necessarily need to do it on a blockchain. So that is
Mm-hmm.
something I just wanted to throw out there as kind of my observation, but also advice
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten from other professionals who are,
Mm-hmm.
developers and whatnot. So is that something you also agree with as well?
Absolutely agree. So, for example, traceability. When we had like a very huge trend, the communication was spread across UAE about blockchain 4 years ago, and Dubai invested like lots and lots of money to bring here
Right.
Ethereum, and so lots of were going on with IBM over here, and we were trying to help Dubai smart government to
Right.
build use cases. But right, so not all every use case is a use case for the blockchain.
Right. Absolutely. And perhaps if I feel you can articulate this better than
Mm.
I can, what are some good alternatives to the blockchain if you're a startup, if you're looking to get some sort of tech project up? What are some good alternatives that you have seen out there other than using blockchain technology? And I know it depends on the use case, of course, but if you can just kind of throw a few examples out there.
Uh, the good example in Dubai, so when they have a KYC and verification processes between the several authorities, they just did the integration of the databases. But of course, it's like not, we can't say the question comes to the IT infrastructure, how much
Right.
trust they have into that. But yeah, the good alternative just to have an agreement and partnership between the entities, and to have a cross integration between the databases.
Right. So, for instance, if somebody has a project, would it be
Mm-hmm.
fair to say if many of these functions could be done through and off, let's say, a cloud, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
some additional algorithms, that might just be a better alternative than, let's say, the blockchain if it's a matter of money, right?
It should be also the matter of money, but let's also remember about the security, right? When we are
Right.
talking about the governmental, for example, how critical your data is. So, and that is why cybersecurity right now is also popular,
Right.
because the hackers, they become more techy and they invent more
Right.
things, and how you can protect better your data. So the question is how critical your data is and how critical
Right.
transactions you make are. And based on that, you can decide, yeah, my risks are higher rather than my investment, or what will be the outcome if I don't invest right now in a better tech solution to protect my transactions, how
Right.
it will impact me. So like some companies, I was told from the same friend that is taking the education in cybersecurity, some
Yes.
companies, they get fines like millions of US dollars due to data leakage.
Wow. So when it comes to blockchain itself, now one
Mm.
of the major features, or you could say one of the major advantages there are, is
Mm-hmm.
that it is immutable. It's presented as a type of technology that is virtually unable to be hacked and unable to be altered or edited. Do you think that's always going to be the case, or do you think hackers will eventually figure out how to,
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say break the code, so to say?
Oh, I think we already had cases when hackers already
Right.
blocked or hacked the blockchain system, of course, the
I guess
algorithms.
what I'm saying
Yeah.
is, do you think one day it's going to be to a point where it's common? So we always hear about clouds, for instance.
Uh-huh.
There's plenty of instances of clouds getting hacked. And a lot of
Uh-huh.
times when I hear of a blockchain hack, it's usually like a big event, so to say.
Right.
And it's usually, very it's presented as a crisis, and it gets a lot of circulation. So for me, you know what it looks like when I hear about like the blockchain getting hacked? It's like lightning. striking. If I hear about the cloud getting hacked, it's like, somebody getting pranked. Now, I know it's a weird example, but it's kind of like that, so to say. Like, if I was to circulate news of clouds getting hacked, people are like, oh, okay, whatever, I circulate news of the blockchain getting hacked. It's presented as something as catastrophic. So it's like lightning strikes, where when it happens, it seems major, but it doesn't seem like something that happens all the time. So I guess my question would be, do you think blockchain one day is going to be hacked in the same way a cloud can be hacked? Let's say if it's in 10 or 20 years.
That's a very good question, very interesting one. I don't know. To be honest, I can't answer this question. However, let's look at the complexity of the blockchain versus the cloud.
Right.
And of course, the cybersecurity protection tools and methodologies are getting better as well, along the hackers are getting better. So, but the blockchain, why it is surprising when someone is hacking the blockchain? Because the information is distributed between the so many servers, there's so many information
nodes,
holders, right? And in order to hack it, you have to hack everyone all together at the same time. So how are you going to do that? And when it comes to the cloud, there is the data center. Of course, it's like cloud, but there is still a physical data center
There is a centralized location for much of the operations, in the data.
So that is where the comparison between of complexity. But anyway, I do still believe that blockchain, I think, I would guess that still will remain more secure.
Right. So I guess when it comes to hacking the blockchain, could it come down to a matter of, I guess you could say, computational power? So, and I'm just going to throw a hypothetical out here, but if somebody was to hack a blockchain, I would imagine maybe governments would have that type of resource. Maybe not the average hacker or something like that, but I would imagine maybe some sort of large organization, maybe like a bank could do that, or a government could do that, or some sort of sovereign wealth fund would probably have that type of resources. I guess my question would be, if one was to hack the blockchain, and because it is decentralized, every ledger is located on every node, so to say, and that could be millions of people easily. So would it be a matter of, I guess you could say, computational power? If anything, maybe is it more of computational power than, let's say, skill at that point? What do you think?
That
might be a little too, that might have been a very esoteric question I just asked. But you made me think of a few things, that's why.
First of all, I would think that I'm not so sure that banks will go with not sure how about the banks in UAE would go with the blockchain. So
I don't mean UAE banks, I mean just like hypothetically, like any bank, so to say.
All right, but we have a use case, for example, in BNP Paribas, they went blockchain, but they for some reason they shut down that use case as well. I can't answer this question. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I think we need some time to see how it goes.
Sure. And by the way, this conversation has definitely stirred a lot of ideas as far as questions and future issues that may come up in the the next 5 to 10 years and whatnot. And I also wanted to know what projects are you going to be working on in the near future? What interesting things are out there that you wanted to maybe discuss that you're working on?
I'm very fascinating right now, deep diving into neural networks and deep tech. Right, as I joined recently the US-based computer vision startup called Clade AI. It is a solution to restore images and to enhance them with neural networks to fix colors, lights, shadows, and remove the background. Also, it's possible, and on top of that, it can shrink the image without losing the quality. But what is fascinating, it is based based on the GAN networks, neural nets. And GAN are very popular right now in the trend because this is the one of the most accurate training model to train neural networks. And GANs are very popular right now to used in generating the images or image manipulation. And so a quick example what Clyde does, very interesting, is when you have a low quality image. Let's say you have you did a picture on your phone and you sent it to your friend over WhatsApp, and WhatsApp already did the compression, right? So your friend is getting already a low quality image and low resolution, unless you send it as a file. But if you are a basic non-techie user, you won't send the image as a file, right? But the question is about how we can bring back the quality of this image. There is no other possibility to do it, not with Adobe Photoshop or anything, rather than neural networks. So neural networks, they analyze the picture and then they recreate the same picture, but filling up the missing pixels, like a little Photoshopper, but does it like in a few seconds. And this is extremely popular among the individual users because Clade is done by Let's Enhance. It is called let'senhance.io, and we already have 4 million users on B2C platform. And now we are working with B2B, providing the API for integration.
That is awesome. And as far as next tech trends, so to say, neural networks in deep tech. Now that is definitely a subject matter that is catching a lot of headlines, and a lot of interest is also going in that direction as well. But listen, I'll save that conversation for another time. Listen, Yuliia, thank you so much for coming on today, and thank you so much for answering these questions. This is a very, very interesting and nuanced area, and I think my interest, coupled with, I guess, maybe some of my, I guess you could say, research. Thank you for answering all of those, actually. And I think it's also very enlightening for all the viewers watching this, especially if you're somebody who's either very experienced or just getting into this. I think this conversation has been great as far as simplifying and kind of breaking down these bigger topics into conversation pieces. So, Yuliia, again, thank you so much for coming on. I'm looking forward to having you come back on in a few months. Perhaps we can talk further about deep tech and other different types of related technologies as well. So greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much for inviting. I enjoyed our conversation. It was so dynamic. We touched so many points around technology. I really loved it, Adam, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and have an awesome weekend.
Likewise, you too. Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye.